He was introduced by a friend, Don Costa. He became his producer. We're in Miami, then he's working on a film. He gives me a call. Up I go eat supper with him, after he says, "Kid, come on, have dinner." This is comparable to 67. Paul Anka held on to Frank for 60 years. Hidden away are Sinatra's darkest secrets. At 84, however, he is at last speaking. And when Sinatra looked him in the eye, in 1968, he said something that made a huge difference. It was more than simply, "my way." It concerned the relationships within the mob, the covered-up scandals, and the bodies that vanished when individuals defied the board chairman. Anka observed it all take place. Despite threats, bribery, and worse, he remains silent. However, aging has a means of letting people talk freely, and the tales he is currently sharing will permanently ruin Sinatra's reputation. Anka Paul was birthed at Ottawa Civic Hospital on July 30, 1941. He was the child of foreigners. In 1924, his father, Andrew Anka, arrived from Damascus with a meager $15, as well as a single suitcase. He launched Locanda, a tiny eatery in Ottawa, on West Laurier Avenue. For 45 they served pasta. Journalists from the citizens of Ottawa adored it. Paul's world was that eatery as well. When he was 7 years old, he was able to list all of the federal cabinet ministers. At table 4, he learned specifics from political rumors. He welcomed more than 300 customers on Saturdays. He observed his dad working hard, shake hands, work, and smile. He committed it to memory. The household resided in a house on Clearview Avenue with 2 bedrooms. They were 5 in number. Winters fell down to minus 25 degrees Celsius. Paul put on mittens and practiced his singing. Although money was limited, he was shaped by 2 things: his mother's Arabic lullabies and his father's driving. Camellia was her name. She was a native of Lebanon. He remembered the tunes. Paul was 12 years old in the fall of 1953. He entered Pfizer Park High School carrying a $14 guitar that he had borrowed. He announced his new group to everyone. The Bobby Sockers, as they are known. He drew in Raymond Carrier, 2 classmates, and Barrow, Gerald. They practiced next to tomato crates in his cellar. They occasionally sung beyond 2 in the morning. Paul used an old John Thompson book to teach himself how to play the piano. He even composed a song in math class. He had already penned 27 songs by the age of 13. Is Frederick Karam, the music teacher, recalled everyone. Paul once desired to, he was too young to perform at the Fairmont Club in Quebec. So he took her mother's unlicensed Buick. He went across the river. He persuaded the doorman to give him a free performance. He sang a song that he had written. I confess, he took first place. $25 plus a week's worth of reservations. Everyone else saw a warning from the cops, but child who refused to give up. Paul sung at St. Elias Cathedral every Sunday. He studied old songs and odd time signatures, such as 7/8. He combined those with late-night boogie music he heard on the CKUA radio. The outcome was novel. One judge at a YMCA competition called it as strangely hypnotic. Paul was the star of every local performance by 1955. He gave 42 performances in just 6 months. One performance took place at a rough during halftime Riders football match. He wrote a song, and 19,000 people applauded. Blau Wild de Vast Fontaine was an odd name for it. He had taken it out of a book. For his English class he was reading. He was dubbed the pint-sized Sinatra by the Ottawa Journal. He was earning over $60 at the age of 14. Weekly in Canadian dollars. That was 3 times as much as other children received as permission. The soup cans followed. In early 1955, Paul noticed a competition from Campbell. Send in 1,500 labels to win a free ticket anywhere in the world, and $100 or more. North America. He rummaged in IGA dumpsters for 3 months. He completed 12 bags labeled tomato soup. They were adhered to admission paperwork with the assistance of his sister Miriam. He won on May 5, 1955. Los Angeles was his choice. He had $200. His uncle Morris hosted him in Hawthorne and took an 18-kilometer cab ride to Modern Records. He attempted to try out without an appointment. They declined. Then he saw Capitol Records and took a demo with him. For the first time, Tower one day he promised himself he will be within it. That Paul surprised his folks on Christmas. He had no desire to return to school. He desired New York. His dad, all right, Andy said. He granted him 6 months. In order to sign a record contract, if he didn't succeed, he had to return to Londa and work there full-time. On January 1, 1956, Paul loaded 2 luggage and $500 onto a CPR train. The journey took 16 hours to Grand Central. He went to ABC Paramount to try out for Don Costa on day 53 of his 6-month deadline. He sang, Diana, picking up the phone. Costa dialed Andy's number in Ottawa. Your boy, he said, I just wrote a million-seller. Paul didn't ever work at the eatery. Once more, he had 1 tune and 5 minutes by 1957. That was all. he was in front of Don Costa with Diana's demo. Costa heard the opening verse. Next he halted him and summoned everyone to the space. When that hour was up, Paul possessed a contract. They gave him twice as much money each album as new vocalists do, typically obtained. The label was covered by the story. From then forward, any unexpected the hit was referred to as a 5-minute miracle. Diana was captured on video on May 19, 1957, and it was released in July by RCA's Studio B. No posters, no advertisements. After 3 weeks it was 83 stations are playing it. It reached the top spot in 6 nations by September. It was sold in 18 months, 9 million copies were sold. It remained at the top in Britain alone, for 9 weeks. There, it sold 1.25 million albums, surpassing all other records except Rock, All Day, and All Night. 2 vinyl factories in Edmonton, Canada, operated around the clock. Day, only to satisfy demand. Paul secured a gig in Ottawa prior to the song's success. The date was October 28, 1956. The Capitol Theatre was the venue, but the audience turned against him. He was allegedly lip-syncing. They jeered him, they hurled money. He bolted from the stage. "I will never again sing in this town," he said. Informed the promoter, for 25 years. He fulfilled that pledge. He didn't come back till in 1981, the city handed him the key to Ottawa. He claimed his boyhood had been destroyed that night. Paul was flying by 1959. Continuously, his passport indicated 146,000 kilometers. January, in London. March, in Sydney, Havana shortly before Castro came to power. Tokyo, in June, he was 17, still required he received $15,000 per night. But Guardian agreed to co-sign his shows. On several evenings, he exceeded Sinatra's earnings. So loud were his admirers' screams that they tossed shoes on stage merely to force him to stoop and touch the ground of their nation. In Cuba, because of him, the police had to outlaw high heels. Paul wasn't merely singing, though he was gaining knowledge about the industry. He observed that European record deals paid in 1958. He renegotiated since it was better. In the U.S., he received 1.5 cents, while abroad, he received 3 cents. He insisted on maintaining his publication rights as well. He began Spanka at the age of 17. Music. This implied that whenever someone performed Diana, Lonely Boy, or subsequently, the record label did not get the money. He did. His tunes have made $2.50 by the age of 18 million. He purchased a Montreal apartment complex and a bar in Las Vegas with the funds. He was not allowed to legally consume alcohol. He possessed both, though, in either location. On August 17, 1960, in a dimly lit club, 4 young lads from Liverpool took the stage in Hamburg. Nobody was aware their names, but they underwent a transformation night after night, and show after show. It was the birth of the Beatles. They and the Rolling Stones had within 3 years in the UK, they had 8 #1 hits, and Paul Anka vanished as they rose. His new songs were all failures. They didn't even make it into the top 20. After cutting his studio funds, label ABC Paramount fired him. They claimed that they desired voices from younger people. Anka was only 21. 3 years prior, he had sold 13 million singles, although his numbers had drastically dropped by the spring of 1963. Not quite a 4 consecutive quarters, selling millions of records. The decline was 80%. The radio, it also turned its back. Wins New York played him 28 times a week in 1960. By May, they only played him 3 times in 1963. The Beatles received 55 in the same month. Teen idols became popular almost immediately after he was 22, before Anka was even 22. Seen as outdated, the majority of singers would have disappeared. Anka didn't. He strolled in December 1962. He went into a BC's New York office and did something crazy. He gave them a $250,000 cashier's check, which is currently worth over $2.5 million, and purchased all of the songs he had previously recorded with them. The executives chuckled. The total revenue from his back catalog was less than $40,000 annually. They gave it a name. A waste, but Anka was wise enough. There have already been 31 foreign covers of such tunes. He would now receive new licenses at 100%. By 1970, Pepsi advertisements and reissues of Put Your Head on My Shoulder and Diana drove his catalog up to $15 million. That same catalog brought in over $100 million by 2020. He had handwritten one minor note on the original contract. Every format in the future included. That one line ensured there would be no additional costs for CDs, downloads, or streaming at any time. He took a plane to San Juan for the movie, the longest, at the beginning of 1963. He met model and former Miss Sweden runner-up, Andy Zogbon set. He sent proposals with red-eye tickets and sent her letters from airports for the following year. On February 16th, they were married at 2 a.m. in 1963 after taking a plane to Paris. Within the Orly Airport VIP lounge, the guests drank Dom Perrin in 1955. Their wedding cake arrived. Plane from Maxim's, a telegram from Frank Sinatra. Said, "Kid, you're insane." But Miss Eltov, it was featured on 4 pages of Life magazine. 200 pearls were hand-sewn into her outfit. They performed their first dance to a 12-piece orchestra's live rendition of Put Your Head on My Shoulder from Ha Ha. They had 5 daughters and remained married for 37 years. In 2000, they split up. A month before, to the wedding, in 1962, Anka had penned a 32-bar Soldiers March for the longest day in 48 hours. The movie had a $7.5 million for $1. He consented to act in it. The producer provided him with 0.25% of the worldwide gross. The movie was released on September 25, 1962, and made in its first year $30.5 million. Anka received $76,000 as her portion. 900 times his acting fee was won. The Oscar went to The March. The song was adopted by NATO. His song was played at military parades from Ottawa to Oslo. In 1965, the same Anka secured a 6-week contract with the Sands in Las Vegas in November 1963. He wasn't even 23. Now, he was the town's youngest. Single headlining act. Sammy Davis Jr. coached him. Teen ballads are over. Go, big band. With Cole Porter's Anka made her debut. Night and Day entered the throng while he was closing and disregarded the casino's rules by simply making contact with someone. His salary, $2,500 per night. He hadn't received so much money from ABC in a month. Critics paid attention. Diverse referred to him as an adolescent tweeter who became a Rat Pack Prody. Spring 1964 saw him hold twin homes amid the Sahara. In the Sands, he had created a novel invention, the Vegas residency of contemporary pop stars. He will later appear in over 2,000 by 2025. Then something unexpected happened. In October 1962, Johnny Carson was set to take over The Tonight Show. Anka played an old song, Toot Sweet. He awarded half the credit to Carson and half the royalties. In return, 5 evenings, that little 90-second theme was played. 30 years. Once a week, it played 1.4 million times throughout time. Every one performance brought in about $200, approximately $800,000 to $900,000, was collected by Anka. Each year it earned him almost $22 million over 30 years. He used to jest that the groom's tuxedos, weddings, and even college expenses were covered by the funds. When the program concluded in 1992, he stated it was like losing a family member. Anka took a gamble on Broadway in 1964. The lead Sammy had given up on what makes SMU run. Anka took over on February 27th. He was 22. His critics questioned him. A pop star portraying a ruthless Hollywood entrepreneur. However, he managed to perform 8 gigs in 3 weeks without missing a single one. The box office increased by 18%. He committed 210 to memory, 14 songs, and pages of dialogue in under 17 days. June 1965 marked the end of the show. However, Anka is still featured on the album's cover. Not the initial celebrity, but the someone who kept it safe. Later, he remarked, "It's easier to do 8 Broadway shows than 2. Anka resumed writing in 1970. Midnight sets in Tahoe. On July 23, he wrote She's a Lady for Tom Jones while confined to a hotel room in New York. In less than 3 hours. When it was released on January 9, 1971, it achieved number 2. Billboards. Only Bobby McGee and Me by Janis Joplin managed to keep it from the top. It peaked at number 1 on Cashbox and in Canada. 5 million copies were sold. Globally by Christmas. Anka's royalties totaled $2 million. He acknowledged that he thought the lyrics were too sexist and rewrote them in 2013 since they duet. However, it was demonstrated in 1971 that he was still able to write hits for various voices. Life at home remained wild. He and Anne brought up 5 daughters. In 1966, Alexandra. In 1968, Amanda. 1970, saw Alicia. 1971, saw Anthea. In 1977, saw Amelia. Everywhere they lived. A cliffside home in Carmel, close to Clint Eastwood, a palace in Vegas, and a brownstone in New York, and desired the girls to only have one school annually, but the journey made that difficult. Due to tour stops, they would move coasts in the middle of the year. Alexandra recalled following royalty statements to determine her father's whereabouts. Nevertheless, each of the 5 daughters completed college prior to Anka's 50th birthday. Beside his riches, he framed their diplomas. Documents, evidence that BMI and PTA may coexist, he claimed. February, Frank Sinatra had dinner at the Fontainebleau Hotel in 1968. He was 52. Anka was 27 years old. I'm done, kid, Sinatra remarked, glancing across the table. One more album. I then gave up. Everyone fell silent. The Rat Pack, group, the gangster guys, even the former bodyguard of Sinatra, Anka, was informed. You never wrote me that song. He remembered that line. On June 13, 1971, 3 years later, Sinatra would declare retirement. But Anka had already drafted the return by that point. After returning from Miami on February 22, 1968, Anka sat in his New York around 2 a.m. A thunderstorm struck the apartment. He filled his IBM with wrapped paper. Selectric, the rain tapped rhythmically outside. He played Claude's tape, the Cometude of Francois. He pictured the voice of Sinatra. He began typing. The finale is now in sight. By 7 o'clock, he had 5 pages in the morning. As he finished, the rain ceased. He dialed Don Costa. His words were, I got it. Sinatra recorded Frank's farewell on the 30th of December 1968 at Hollywood Studio One. In one take, he completed it in 4 minutes and 35 seconds. The drummer said, everyone in, as he nailed the line. Final curtain. It was sensed in the room. It was his life, not a song. The phone call then arrived. For 10 p.m., mid-March 1969, Anka was called by Sinatra from the studio. Listen, kid, and stop talking. The phone was held up to the speaker. I'm sorry. I've had some in the orchestra grew. In his den, in Beverly Hills, Anka sat by herself and wept. The single was released on March 15th. It peaked at number 27 in July. In the 475 weeks, it remained in the top 40 in the UK. 18 months prior, Anka Had Puppy Love was released. 1.3 million copies were sold. Now, because of A Stormy Night and After 7 Silent Words, everything was different. He became the youngest by my way, an elder from Tin Pan Alley. However, he forfeited the performer's portion. Sinatra took everything. Only the writer's cut was retained by Anka. Those royalties exceeded his. By 1974, whole catalog for 1957 to 1967, $550,000 annually. Adjusted for 2025. He used to remark on stage, I made a monster who stole my 3.2 million, sweetheart. Still, he got a second act from the song. He transitioned from teenage idol to builder of legacy. He wrote for Tom Jones and Michael Jackson. Because of one, the end felt close at night in a downpour. And that was the start for him. Beginning in 1971, the Strip was a secret jungle. Until 1976, Anka referred to it as an honor code. Having teeth, nothing was more important than loyalty. Survival meant silence. He observed that Sinatra's guards weren't your typical hotel employees. Men like Johnny Formosa handled it. He was once an enforcer of Teamsters. He was charged with racketeering in 1973. These men had no interest in signing autographs. All they cared about was who you knew. Those who spoke regarding Sinatra's fury subtly disappeared during performances. Their union cards vanished. One trombone player at a time said he received a telegram from Anka. Remember, just one word. The stamp stated, but no name, New Jersey's Hoboken. Sinatra was born and raised there. Additionally, Anka discovered what the woman controlled, while musicians whispered, if there was a woman in Sinatra's social circle, she was untouchable, whether she was a reporter, waiter, or girlfriend.